Good morning, everyone. On behalf of my family, I'm welcoming everyone here in person and the many people who are joining us on the live stream. My name is Chris Hatley. I am Bruce Hatley's son, and I'm very proud to be here today and to officiate today's service. And I just have to say, for those who are signing in online, what a grand and glorious day it is here in Bruce Jaw. It is spectacular. It's like the middle of summer. Our celebration this morning will include tributes by my sister Joanne and myself. There will be the members of the Royal Canadian Legion are here to do the official tribute to my father. And then there will be a video and photography tribute that you'll see on the screens on either side. For those folks at home, you won't be able to see that. It lasts about 10 minutes. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it online, but it will be placed in the recording that will be available afterwards. And when that tribute is playing, Gloria Gibson will be on the piano accompanying it. People often ask how they can help on a day like this. And my answer to you is to be supportive of us by smiling, laughing, and remembering a lot of the fun and wonderful things and times you had with my father. That will help us to be able to get through this ceremony. And I also want to make a personal acknowledgement for my whole family to the Legion for being here and doing such a great job yesterday. At the interment, they were there to perform the official rites, and it was really wonderful. And my father was with them and did that for over 30 years, until well into his 90s rather, performing that. So it was really wonderful. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. So with that, I am going to invite my sister Joanne to come up and say a few words.
Welcome, everyone. It's very good to see you here. Thank you so much for your presence today as to help celebrate my dad's life. Such a long and full life. My thoughts today are also with some of the rest of you who have lost loved ones recently. Bruce Hatley put on a lot of miles in his 99 years, and he did it well. My dad was very particular about everything he did. You didn't just do a job to get it done. You did it to the best of your ability. This wasn't really spoken, it wasn't a rule that was spoken, but you knew. Some of you might be thinking about his immaculately cared for yards on General Crescent or at the cottage, his lawn that was always perfect, and gardens, or how he kept his apartment in later years even. Despite being a perfectionist, though, my father never really gave advice. Neither of my parents did. He meticulously and correctly completed his tax returns by hand, no software used, until the age of 95. I imagine those returns might have surprised a few of the CRA staffers when they realized the age of the person. At 96, Bruce wrote out a detailed account of his time in the Air Force during World War II, including the 12 bases he had been transferred to from Comox, BC to Nova Scotia. In that three-year period, he completed training as a wireless electric mechanic and was responsible for operating and maintaining long-range navigation. In 1946, he left the Air Force and went back to his parents' farm, and the next year married his sweetheart, Shirley Halliday. We moved quite a bit in my early years. In Langbank and Kennedy, Saskatchewan, Dad worked as a carpenter, building houses with Uncle Wilf Johnson, and as an electrician. He even helped his brother Jim moving buildings a few times. When Bruce re-enlisted in the RCAF in 1955, we moved to Clinton, Ontario. I was 4. On my 5th birthday, we arrived at our home on a sparsely populated rural road outside the Saint-Hubert Air Force Base near Montreal. That first night, the oil heater caught on fire as my dad tried to light it. I still can remember the panicked run, looking for help from the house across the road. Mom broke her arm, falling down the steep ditch, carrying 6-week-old baby Dan. But it wasn't all bad, because the fire was put out quickly, and the new neighbors gave me a quarter when they found out it was my birthday. And neighbors Vi and Harry turned out to be the best of friends, and as always, my parents kept in touch with them forever. I think the most angry I ever remember my dad was when we lived in Quebec. I was likely 6, and Connie and I had set up a playhouse area along one wall of the garage. In our domestic play with canned jars, stuffed tight with weeds, we lined the windowsill with our canning. It was summer, and summers are hot in Ontario, in Quebec, I should say. Summers are hot in Quebec. The forgotten weeds fermented and one day blew up all over Dan's car in the garage. And they stunk. He was hopping mad. I think that Connie and I may have learned some language that day. Living in Quebec meant lots of car rides back to Saskatchewan to visit family. It was on one of those trips that I learned one should not leave their bag of crayons in the back window of the car. It seemed like a good idea at the time when there was so little other space. 5 of us in a Vauxhall, traveling with all we needed for 3 weeks, including picnic and camping gear. Didn't leave any space, any room. Gail was telling me recently that she used to be mesmerized watching Bruce pack up the trunk after our stay at their house. The way everything had to fit into its exact place, just like a puzzle. Living on the base in the Mayo, outside of Edmonton, was great for us Hatley kids. The school was close, and we could bike around on our own. We could go to the recreation hall and watch movies any day, all summer, for 5 cents. We could swim twice a day if we wanted. And lucky for us, a new brother was born, Christopher Douglas. Long car trips continued with family visits to Saskatchewan, but also camping vacations now to BC. This is when Dad built his first ingenious trailer to accommodate all of us, all 6 of us. One of my parents' travel highlights was a trip to Europe in 1975, celebrating Dad's retirement from the armed forces. Once he retired from 12 years of teaching at STI, and all the kids had left home, Bruce and Cheryl enjoyed winters in Arizona until that became too difficult for Mom. Dad traveled to Ireland with Chris and Lindy and Connie and Gord after Mom died in 2006, and they had a wonderful vacation. Dad arranged and took many trips on his own, and then later with Bernice Austin. The Athabasca Towers social group, Friday dinners at Smitty's with the foursome, Legion continued to be so important. And of course, spending time with family. Even at 90, my dad would get down on the floor and play Lego with one of his great-grandchildren. You remember, Peter? Yes. My father always knew how to enjoy himself. Well, both my parents did, as you probably recall. One of the things I've always admired about my parents is how wherever they went, they made good friends and kept up with them over the years through in-person visits, letters, or phone calls. There were always a lot of guests for dinners, holiday events, and parties in our home. Wherever they lived, it was the same, welcoming people to the house, cottage, or to their RV patio later in Arizona. They may not have invented, but I believe that they perfected the practice of happy hour at the Good Life Resort in Mesa. Along with all Bruce and Cheryl's entertaining, hosting so many events, my father was often behind the camera. Some of the cousins might remember my dad taking 8mm home movies, sometimes with a big bank of bright lights shining in your eyes. As technology changed, he moved from film to video. I'm so glad that to have that record now going back to the 1950s, and I'm grateful that the archivist tendencies in my father made sure that his recordings were later transferred to newer formats. It's been my privilege to continue caring for this family record. Once Bruce got a computer, he took up genealogy and spent many hours researching and communicating with others to build a family history going back centuries. Another record that we all have now, thanks to Bruce. Dad was always interested in how things worked and was continuously learning. At 18, my parents brought me to Saskatoon to go to university. As we walked through the campus grounds, my dad was looking around and saying, "I'd really like to come here someday." And I remember telling him that, you can after you retire. And the classes sometimes are even free when you're retired. Anyhow, I talked to him about that experience shortly before he died, and I asked him if he would have liked to have done that, if he missed that he had done that, or maybe if he even had had a different career. And his response was very clear, that no, what he had done was good for him. It had suited him well. So he didn't study after retirement, but he was a lifelong learner. Growing up on or, excuse me just a second, growing up on or near Air Force bases meant hearing lots of airplanes and seeing lots of air shows. I was thinking the other day, about a few years ago, Dad would probably still be living at Athabasca Towers, or maybe he moved to the Bentley, but I was in my kitchen and I heard a familiar sound. So I rushed outside in time to experience the roar of a Hercules going overhead. Without even a thought, I ran back in the house so that I could phone my dad and tell him, "I just heard a Herc." I don't know if you know what a Hercules is, but they're a huge cargo plane and they have this roaring sound that rumbles through your body. And we very, very rarely, they're rarely flying over in Saskatchewan. It's very unusual, but there was an air show on that weekend in Saskatoon. I've always been very proud of my dad, and there are lots of reasons for that. He was proud of each of us in turn, his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren. He loved you all and wanted each one of you, whatever choices you make in your journey through life, to have a good life. Bruce Hatley was a gentleman. He had a quiet sense of humor. He liked a good joke, but didn't often tell one. He liked going to museums and he would read the curatorial text. His bedside read of choice was the National Geographic. He liked lemon meringue pie and chocolate in any form. He rarely complained about anything. He could fly in his dreams. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. So as you know, and as Joanne highlighted, my dad lived a long, happy, and very fruitful life. He was the last of his generation, and on both sides of our family, in a lot of ways, the end of an era. And so today, part of what we're doing, Joanne and I and everyone being here, is celebrating the people of that era, our parents, aunts, and uncles. They are the root of many of our memories and a lot of our character traits as well. In my case, for good or bad. Perhaps many of you, like me, when you think of my dad, you're grateful. I'm grateful for the time that we spent together, for the laughs, for the hugs, for his guidance, although he didn't give advice, as Joanne said, but there was guidance. The lessons learned, including those that we learned the hard way. As Joanne said, he was a gentleman, and yesterday when we were talking with people, often that was the first thing they'd say, he was a gentleman. So he was always the first to pull open a chair, or pull a chair out for a lady, to open a door, to open a car door, as he did for Queen Elizabeth when she was here in the 50s for a tour. And when he would come to visit Lindy and myself in Toronto, I had to up my gentlemanly game, and apparently I never quite achieved his standard. He was loyal. His duty was first to family, and he expected the same of us. His service record talks to his love of country and his sense of duty. And his loyalty to Queen and country was very apparent when in 2012 he was visiting us in Toronto, and then Prince Charles was doing a walkabout just down the street from us. So I said to my dad, let's go. Let's see if you can see Prince Charles. So we're standing there, and there are a lot of people. And I managed to get us up to where the rope was. And Prince Charles is walking along, and people are waving at him, and the cameras are out. He sees my father and walks directly towards him. My dad is gobsmacked. He didn't say a word. Prince Charles put out his hand, shook my dad's hand, and chatted to us. And I think it was about half an hour afterwards before my dad could say anything. He was just so in awe. But I thought that's something that he came over specifically and talked to my dad. I guess Prince Charles is a good judge of character. My dad was an optimist. Even in times of illness and grief, he would find a way to see that the glass was half full, and he would make sure that you knew he was thinking that. His positive outlook and encouragement were often voiced with the phrase, real good. Bruce had wit and he had fun. His humor, as Joanne mentioned, was often very subtle in the form of wit, but he would have a twinkle in his eye, and he would watch to see if you would fully appreciate just how funny that comment was. It's fitting that this is called a celebration of life, because my parents had great fun hosting celebrations, as Joanne said. Even in my dad's 90s, he would do his best to make a visit as nice as possible for his guests. He would bake bread, make homemade soup. He'd plan a dinner out, and of course, he'd take you to the Legion. To that point, yesterday, after the interment, we went to the Legion, to the new Legion. It was the opening yesterday. We went there as a family and had a toast to our patriarch. He would have loved that. He was a resourceful provider. Our parents, grew up in the Great Depression, and then they got married in 1947. When Dad was in the armed forces, salaries were very low, and they did everything they could to save money and to be able to provide for us four kids. Seldom had a loan, but he was very good at managing his finances. He also enjoyed being generous. And I remember the first Christmas that I was in university, I got a phone call from my dad just before I was coming home for Christmas. He said, I bought you a car. Whoa, you're kidding. Yes, I bought you a car. 1975-year-old Honda Civic stick shift 4-speed. This is fantastic. And then he went on to explain that I could pay him back for it in the summer. He was a do-it-yourselfer, at first by necessity, and then to indulge his love of inventing. He built much of his own well-made and fit-for-purpose equipment for the home and for the shop. He built air conditioners. The cottage had an air conditioner that was made from scratch. He built his own electronic garage door openers, and the cottage and the pool of the cottage were heated with a solar heating system that he built. often from scraps or things that he would make on his own. Not that he was successful in every do-it-yourself kind of venture. For those of you, especially when you visit the cottage, if you had his wine or beer, I used to say it was best left in the bottle to age. He strived for excellence and creativity. Some of us here have Bruce's drive for excellence, and in the extreme it can be called perfectionism. When he combined this with his creativity, he could do all sorts of larger projects. Such as, and you'll see this in the photo tribute that's coming up, the two beautiful recreational trailers that he designed and built. When he did the second one, he enlisted the help of my mom for all the upholstery, and my uncle Austin to weld the chassis. And that RV, both of them, but especially that one that I remember, operated and looked as good or better than anything you could get from a dealership. In the winter that my dad made the second trailer, I was about 10 years old. And we would spend Saturday mornings that winter going to supply shops to buy parts or going and finding used things that he could put into the trailer. So I would watch in awe as he would negotiate. And then I would see his happiness on the drive home when he got a good deal on that part. He taught me the basics of negotiation and that you don't get unless you ask. And watching him draw those designs of that RV sparked in me a lifelong love of architecture. He was a car buff, as you probably remember. He loved to wheel and deal on cars as well, including with my Uncle John at his GM dealership. I wish I'd asked Dad to write down a list of all the cars that he had owned, because he would have loved to have done that, and it would be a long list. Growing up in Moose Jaw, we usually had two cars, and one was the new car that would be spotless inside and out, and that's what Mom would drive, and we would use it for special occasions. And then Dad always had an old used car that he would commute back and forth to the Air Force Base in. And he'd always buy it for steel, repair it to good working order, and it as well would be spotless inside and out. He loved the challenge of working on cars and taking people for a drive and doing road trips. Throughout his whole life, he loved road trips. And when you see the video tribute to him in a few minutes, watch for, there's a video of him walking beside one of his new cars. Pay attention to that one, it's a fun video. And as Joanne noted, he was always a lifelong learner, he truly was. For his 75th birthday, he bought himself a computer, a PC. And then he took a course so that he could learn about PCs, how they worked, emails, storing photos. He then progressed to a cell phone, and then progressed to an iPhone and social media. Not that he was proficient or that he didn't get frustrated like most of us did. I heard many times on the phone his comment, "That damn thing doesn't work." He was patient to a point and human. When my brother Dan and I were about 10 and 5, we shared a small bedroom on our house on Caribou Street, and we shared one double bed. Now, if you can think about how big a double bed is, it's not that big. And by the way, our dog Buffy shared it with us as well. And apparently, instead of falling asleep, we would often annoy each other. And by doing that, Gord's nodding, painfully remembered, we not only annoyed each other, poking, doing whatever we were doing, but everyone in the house would hear us. So one Friday night, we must have been extremely raucous because my dad, well, he didn't do anything that night to answer his calls of "don't make me come in there." He did take action the next morning. My dad took the bed and box spring onto the patio. He put them on sawhorses, and he took an electric circular saw and cut them in two. Quite the sight that was stuffing in pieces of live fly and colorful language. Mom then found a flannel cloth to bandage the gaping sides, because you can imagine, if you take a bed and cut it in half, you've got an opening inside, so you've got to put a cloth in. So she made him sew it, I do remember that too. He then had to build these narrow 2x4 platforms to put the beds on. And Mom had to do a similar surgery to the sheets, because we only had one set of sheets for the bed, so she had to cut those in half so we had sheets. But that unorthodox solution actually worked, because we each had a bed in that tiny little room, and apparently the house slept much better after that point. He loved and cared deeply for his family and his friends, for their well-being, for their happiness. He wanted success for his children, and he saw a strong work ethic as being a very important part of growing up in life. He saw it as being essential. And he pushed me as a teenager to earn my keep. If I was sleeping in on a Saturday, instead of mowing the lawn, and for those of you who recall, we had a half-acre lot, so there was a lot of lawn. I'd be sleeping in, and after he called me 2 or 3 times down the staircase, and I wouldn't come up, he would then take the lawnmower, he'd start it, he'd put it beside my bedroom window and leave it running. I would finally get up, go out, and mow the lawn, and as I was ranting, he would just smile at me. Now lastly, he was happiest socializing. Joanne talked about that. Mom and Dad loved to host parties and to have house guests. And that continued in his later years. At the nightly gatherings with his great friends at Athabasca Towers, where they're playing cards and shuffleboard, and always at family gatherings, he would still provide for us by surreptitiously picking up the check at the end of the night. To his very last day, he mustered up his strength for a visit or a phone call, ending the conversation with, "I love you, dear." For these reasons and many more, my dad will always be a role model to me, and I'm confident that his legacy will continue with this generation, these 2 generations that are here. I love you too, dear. So with that, I'll call on the Royal Canadian Legion. Thank you.
With members of the Royal Canadian Legion, Army, Navy, and Air Force veterans, and serving or former members of His Majesty's Armed Services, please stand if you are able. We assemble today to solemnly remember and to pay respects to the life of our comrade, Bruce Hatley, whose death we mourn, but whose spirit still lives. May we, as citizens and members of the Royal Canadian Legion, be charged anew with the full sense of our duties and responsibilities to our country and our organization. May we ever strive to uphold the principles of unselfish service, which led us to serve our God and our country in time of war and in peace, so that we may continue to serve even unto death. If there's anyone else in the congregation that would like to come up and lay a copy, please do so now. shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Our Heavenly Father, grant, we beseech you, to the loved ones of our departed comrade, your comfort and protection. Amen.
End the celebration with the photo and video tribute that my sister Joanne has produced from vintage photographs, as well as my father's movie clips from over the years. And accompanying the videos will be Joanne's daughter-in-law, Lorian Gibson, who is a very talented and accomplished musician and teacher. Thank you, Joanne and Lauren. That was fantastic. And that brings to a close. I know my dad would be immensely pleased with this, so we thank you for being here and joining us. Now, if you follow us out, we'll go to the reception hall and have some lunch. And thank you to everyone who was watching online.